lack of economic and educational opportunities. For many youth in this generation, contemplating a future at home is contemplating a future without hope. And so as Antonio and I were working with these young people, and we saw how they got so excited and impassioned to create change in their communities and committed to their action plans, what we realized we were seeing was the birth of hope. Hope for a better future, hope for a safer home, and hope that they could do something about it. And so knowing this context and seeing the results that we were seeing, an idea began to form. We thought to ourselves, what if we could take this problem and turn it into a solution? What is the opportunity? What if we could continue to ignite youth, to give them this hope, and to unleash their leadership to tackle the problems that were crippling their communities? And rather than waiting for the appointed leaders that had continued to fail us in that region of the world to find solutions, what if we could unleash a leaderful generation that was leading the transition and working together to create a new narrative for youth in Central America, from one of violence, crime, and poverty to one of peace, prosperity, and sustainability? And so that original promise that I made to Antonio to take all that I was and all that I had to help him be all that he could be became our mantra. And we worked to start helping these youth. And so when they told us that they wanted to learn more about the changes that were happening in our region, and they wanted to learn more about the climate and about how to develop sustainably, then we put together classes and workshops to teach them that. And when they needed to learn technical skills for their action plans, then we partnered with other local organizations. And we worked on water testing and renewable energy and organic gardening so that they could learn to have more impact through their initiatives. And when these young people found themselves standing in front of town hall meetings and speaking in front of their peers and in their schools, then we taught them public speaking so that the messages they were communicating could have impact. And when these young people realized that they were working in communities that had experienced decades of conflict, then we partnered with a group called Play for Peace, and together we learned how non-competitive games and laughter and play can build peace in our hearts and our minds, our homes and our communities. And when these young people began stepping into spaces of leadership and working with local authorities, then we used experiential education to teach about systems transformation and critical thinking and appreciative leadership so that they could move with agility and navigate these spaces. And when they needed a safe space for personal transformation and to learn about love and to create connection with their peers, then we gave them that. And what we realized was, taking a step back over the years, that we had created this vibrant and dynamic learning ecosystem, which we call transformative sustainability leadership. And in this learning ecosystem, we came up with 9 spheres to define the work that we were doing. And so that includes things such as personal mastery, so learning to do your work with compassion and integrity. And citizen muscles, the idea that failure is not the end of the world, but I actually need to go out and exercise my citizen muscle and repeat it again and again and again, because that is the way I create change. And leadership in action, learning that being a leader is not a static thing, but leadership is a verb that requires doing and acting, and that should include integrity and inspiration and inclusion. And teaching them about how to accelerate actions by learning about project planning and project management. And what we found was that this learning ecosystem was highly effective in empowering young people and getting them to lead where others had not, and giving them the skills and tools to be highly effective agents of change. Now let's just take another look at the area where we're working. This is the Social Inclusion Index 2016 for Latin America. If you look up the top, you'll notice it includes more than just GDP. So the Social Inclusion Index is measuring things such as civil rights, women's rights, enrollment in secondary school by gender and race. And if you take a look at where we're working, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, things don't look so good. Especially not if you're female or if you're indigenous. But we're seeing a different story. Today, we have worked with almost 3,000 young people in the region. Over 60% are indigenous and over 52% are female. And we have this very vibrant network of young leaders. These young leaders are empowered with this magnificent tonic of agency, hope, and self-determination. And they are standing up and saying, I have an idea about making a difference. I have a dream and this is what I am going to do. And they are making a difference. Now I want to share this with you. This is our outcomes map. So as we started to see this difference, we tried to understand how can we talk about this in a way that will allow us to replicate it. And so we took a step back and we looked first at what were our 3 strategies. You can see across the top. So our programs are working to develop sustainability and leadership competencies. Everyone involved in our programs has to be involved in a community initiative or an action plan, to be out there doing something. And then we are working to build a dynamic and resilient network, a leaderless network that is not ours, it is of the youth. And what we saw, if you have a look, tier 1, the kind of short-term outcomes that we are seeing as a result of our work here in Orange, an increase in youth-led initiatives in the communities, a change in attitude, more communication amongst young people about issues that are critical to them. And so in the 14 municipalities where we work in Guatemala and El Salvador, we have 25 active youth groups that are taking on problems in their communities through initiatives such as reforestation campaigns to address the risk of landfall and landslide threatening communities, cleaning up the rivers and the streets that are full of trash and to stop it being burnt and creating air pollution. Environmental education in the schools because that does not exist in these areas. Working to ban the use of single-use plastic bags, initiatives that are only just making it to places like the US and Australia. And then what we see in tier 2 here in the green is that in communities where we have been for a number of years, we are seeing these young people at 21, 22 years of age stepping into positions of leadership in the civil, public and private sector. We're seeing more youth involvement in political spaces, which is so important when we're living in democracy because that's what it's about. An increase in youth-led innovations that are contributing towards reducing those inequalities, building opportunities for employment and economic growth, protecting the natural environment. And we are also seeing, as they step into these spaces of leadership, that these young people are advocating and working for policy development and implementation, not just for environmental problems, but they're also tackling issues such as gender equality, such as indigenous rights, such as addressing the huge gun violence against youth in El Salvador. And then tier 3 here in the blue, in communities where we have been working for quite a number of years, where we have these wonderfully competent young leaders that have had a lot of experience doing this. We have a number of community action plans, and we have a strong and vibrant network where youth are now the mentors and the facilitators for new people coming through the process. That we are seeing impacts such as deeper democracy, localizing of wealth and economy, a more inclusive community voice, and a transformation of place. And I want to share with you a little what that looks like. These are some of my favorite people. On the left is Wilson. Wilson, when I met him, could hardly even say hello. He was so shy. He is now the president of the Community Development Council in Suchitoto, which serves 25,000 people. He's also the elected representative to our board for El Salvador, the youth representative. And here he is, and his role as president of the Community Development Council, inaugurating a peace park to honor the young people that were massacred in this community 3 years ago because of gun violence. On the right up the top is Julio. Julio is from Uspantan, Quiché, in Guatemala. This is a region that in the last 5 years has been absolutely devastated by drought because Guatemala's dry corridor has moved from 5 departments to 12. And in Uspantan, in the town of Uspantan, they have water for 2 hours a day. And so Julio is heading up a group of 30 young people who have 7 action plans that are looking at different ways that they can help to get water into the communities and protect their springs. And down the bottom is Fatima. Fatima is an incredible young woman who is very, very passionate about the problems, stopping the violence against women in El Salvador and in Latin America. And so she's involved in a number of civil society organizations, is the founder of a couple, and is very vocal about bringing those issues to public awareness. And here is Sacbet Lopez, Quiché, Guatemalan, 18 years of age, who is working to support a reduction of racism and to change this concept that Indigenous women have no leadership role in society. So this, for me, is exciting because I believe that this shows that we are creating changes on a local level and we're creating changes on a national level. But I did say that these youth hold the solution to making the world a happier, healthier, and more sustainable place. So I'd like to share 3 more examples on how this is going beyond borders. This is Fernando. Fernando Maldonado is a Ceres alumni. He is an amazing champion of food systems and food justice, and he's actually recently joined our board. Now, Fernando works at the University of California in Irvine, and he has been there as really championing this learning and educational approach that Ceres has, and has helped us bring our programs from out of Central America up to work with the UC. And so for the last few years, we have been working to design and deliver programming and curriculum to students at the UC system. And from here, this has given us a platform to reach out to other higher education institutions in the US and beyond to say, hey, how can we do this better? How are we preparing our young people to come of age during a time of such global crisis? How can we work together to create a leaderful generation? This is Esteban Salcocho. Now, Esteban's story in and of itself is inspiring. When we first met him, Esteban had just lost his family home to the tropical storm Agatha. And he had to leave school to work and support his family. Now, Esteban joined the Ceres process, and he was so intoxicated by that tonic I mentioned, which I promise is the only tonic we give our young people. He was so intoxicated that he completed the process in record time. In less than 12 months, had passed through all of our programs that normally take 2 to 3 years. When he graduated, he was elected mayor of his community. He became incredibly active in organizing young people and getting them to get involved with Ceres, in working with the political spaces so that young people knew what was going on, and in asking about what the development strategies in his community were, especially around mining and land rights. But it isn't just this, and Esteban is an absolutely incredible community leader, but it's not just this that makes me really excited about his particular story. Because through Esteban's actions, he has gained the attention of international development agencies. Now, if you know anything about international development, then you'll know that most of the time it is Washington, D.C., top-down driven. A lot of money goes to the top and the middleman, and only a percentage goes into the communities. And yet these development agencies have seen Esteban and have seen the young people working with him and said, hey, we want to support what you believe in because we believe in you. And so he is working to turn the international development paradigm on its head and to model a direct investment that supports community-led strategies and local knowledge brokers. And the last one. This is Abigail. In 2011, Antonio and I met Abby at a congress in the highlands in Guatemala's second largest city. Now, Abby is a story and a young woman who is particularly close to my heart. And it is not just because Abby was there from the beginning. She was number 3. And she was with us bootstrapping this work with a vision, inspired by this vision, to create a leaderful generation and to change the narrative for Guatemalan youth. And it is not just because Abby is like a sister to me. And I have watched Abby grow and develop into a phenomenal educator and leader, and most importantly, a role model for other Indigenous Guatemalan youth. For me, perhaps more than this, is what Abby represents. Abby is a Sutuhil mine from Solala, one of the poorest departments in Guatemala, where 7 out of 10 children under the age of 5 are chronically malnourished. Abby was born during the Civil War at a time when there was approximately 1 person a month being killed in her community. And when she was 4 years of age, government troops opened fire on 4,000 Sutuhil Mayans in her community who were peacefully protesting the war. Abby lives in a country where the top 3 crimes against women are femicide, homicide, and murder. And less than 30% of Indigenous women make it into middle school. Abby also is part of a generation of women where 58% are pregnant by the time they're 18. And so not only is Abby's story incredible, but it represents the power of youth leadership. It represents overcoming the odds and believing in yourself and never, ever, ever giving up. And Abby really showed this when in November of last year, her persistence, her belief, and her vision paid off, and she was invited on behalf of Ceres to travel to UNESCO's headquarters in Paris and accept the award that we were given for our work in educating young people to take on the challenges of the sustainability crisis and to lead the way towards a more sustainable future. And Abby stood on the stage and invited the General Assembly of UNESCO to invest in youth leadership and education to build a better future.
On behalf of Ceres, our facilitator, ESD ambassador, and young people across Guatemala and El Salvador, I would like to express our gratitude to UNESCO, the government of Japan, and the GOI Peace Foundation for this honor and recognition. Ministers, ambassadors, UNESCO representatives, friends, and fellow laureates, the task is not small, nothing short for a transformation of a society at every level. We believe that young people, with their energy, ideas, and passion for a better tomorrow, are one of our most valuable resources to help drive this transformation. Ceres is committed to training a core of 7,000 ESD youth leaders and ambassadors by 2020, who are leading the way towards a more just, sustainable, and peaceful society. Wherever you are, whatever you do, we invite you to join us. Hara haptik ehewin limalach martiosh. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much.
So, as you can see, these unlikely leaders are creating impact beyond their borders to leverage investment, to change and influence policy, practice, regulation, and public opinion. But I want to take you all the way back to the beginning, when I said that I believe that these young leaders hold the key to making the world a happier, healthier, and more sustainable place, not just here, but around the world. Why? Because of this. Because these brave and courageous and passionate young people give me hope, and hope changes everything. Hopelessness cripples us. It paralyzes. And right now, I believe that there are many, many people around the world that need hope. Hope tells us that better things are possible. And these leaders and their stories of change give us hope. Hope that we can do anything. 7 years ago, Antonio and I began to gather seeds of hope. And we watered and nurtured and loved and cared for these seeds. And these seeds of hope began to blossom and spread. And so I would like to invite you tonight to take a seed. And as you do so, I invite you to think about where you see these seeds of hope around you. And as we did, I invite you to think about how can you use all that you have and all that you are to make this hope blossom and spread around the world. Because I believe that the future lies in the power of the human spirit that soars on the wings of hope, that inspires us to rise beyond our ordinary selves and to achieve something we thought we were not capable of, just like these unlikely leaders. As Emily Dickinson says, hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the word and never stops at all. Never underestimate the power of planting seeds.